Hi everyone, my name is Steph. This is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the weekly book steep where we drink tea and talk books, specifically the books that I have read over the last 7 days, which has been a lot because I have been on leave for the last week. I've had a lot of time. I've done a lot of reading, a lot of kids reading this week, catching up on some stuff that I have floating around my apartment, but also books for me, project books, all that good stuff. So grab yourself a drink, settle in, and let's talk about what I've read in the last week. Oh, and I should say, this is my Pete Chroma Possum mug. It's one of my favourites, and it's just peppermint tea because it's early in the morning. I keep losing my voice, so I figured this is the way to go. It's still hot, might burn my tongue on that. Anyway, this week I read 23 books and I started a 24th book that I'm still currently listening to. It's a reread though. 10 points to anyone who figures out what I'm rereading. It shouldn't be that hard. I had one full reread plus this reread that I started. I read 3,746 pages and the equivalent of 26.5 hours of audiobook reading was in there as well, but I don't listen to anything on one-time speed, so divide that by 3 or 2.9 or whatever the speed was that I was listening to. But the equivalent of about 26 hours worth of audiobooks. I read 2 books for projects that I haven't spoken about in any other video, and I had 2 DNFs. Now I said I read a lot of kids books. I read this many kids books, and I'm only going to talk about a few of them. I'm going to talk about very briefly some of the novels. I have a graphic novel that is a review copy that will be talked about in a future wrap-up video closer to release, and one picture book for review. So let's do those first before I dive into anything else. The rest of these picture books are getting reviews on Kidlit Joy anyway. So first up I have What's That? Australian Sharks, Rays and Skates. This is illustrated by Myke Mollard. This was sent to me for review by Woods Lane Press, so thank you very much to them. This is a children's non-fiction title all about Australian sharks, rays and skates, where they live, what the classifications mean, all fun facts. What do they like to eat? Where do you find them around Australian shores? So I really liked the setup for this book because, as I said, it has the classifications. I didn't really know what a skate was. In my head I've probably been calling them something else. So having that definition was great, and then having either a 1 or a double page spread for each of the different animals. I love that you have the classification panel on the side so that you know that we're in the shark section, the rays section, and the skate section. Illustration, general paragraph, and then all of these fun facts. It was a really interesting read. Now, nothing else I have in this stack is a review title, but I just wanted to mention them really briefly because they are novels. I did read them. So a couple of weeks ago, I would have mentioned that I received a review copy of a book in the Your Next Read series. I did pick up the other 3 books that have currently been released. So there's The Missing Pencil Case by Jasmin, McGuighy and Jade Godwin. There is Bee, Bart and the Birds by Katrina, Nannestad and Cheryl Orsini. And then Winn by Jane Goodwin and Tom Jellett. All 3 of these are junior fiction titles. They are the books that feature different classifications so that kids can figure out pretty quickly what the book is about, whether it's a funny story, an animal story, a sports story, a friendship story, a family story, a mystery. These were really fun, really good early chapter books for the 5 to 7, 5 to 8 category. So I'm glad I picked these up because I'm going to put them in the classroom library. I also read another junior fiction title, Bitza by Andrew Daddo. This is about a dog that is a mix of many different breeds, aka Bitza. Bitza this and Bitza that. And Bitza one day follows Jasper home from the park while she's walking another dog. And Jasper tries to hide him in her house. He doesn't have a collar or anything like that. And he just really likes her company. And she desperately wants a dog of her own. And so she sets about trying to convince her dad to let her keep Bitza. It's a really sweet story. Again, quite large text, illustrations throughout, good early fiction chapter book. There is a second one, which I will check out. I'll just see if the kids like this one first. And then Pocket Bear by Katherine Applegate, which is her newest release, I believe. And this one I absolutely adored. I already have a review up on Kidlit Joy. Pocket is a mascot bear, so he was made for soldiers who were going off to World War I to sit in their pocket and to keep them company and remind them of the people that love them. And Pocket has been adopted by a family who found him in a cupboard. The family consists of Elizaveta, the mother, and Dasha, the daughter. They're both refugees from Ukraine. Dasha was injured by a bomb blast, so she walks with crutches. And together she and her mother end up rescuing old toys that Zephyrina, a cat, brings to their door. And so they've started a little side business of restoring and rehousing old toys, which is beautiful. And the entire story is told from Zephyrina's perspective, the cat, and she has attitude. I really liked her as a character. But one day Zephyrina finds an old teddy bear in a bin and she brings that back to the house, and it smells really bad. It smells like it's been at the back of a pizza shop, which it has. And they set about restoring this old bear, but Pocket realizes that this bear might be one of the original Steiff teddy bears from Germany. And so he and all the other toys who can talk and move around, but only do so at nighttime so they don't freak out Dasher and Elisabetta, set out trying to help Bear One, as Dasher calls the new teddy bear. There is an antiquities collector who tries to steal Bear One. There is a museum curator who is trying to help uncover information for Dasher and Elisabetta about both Pocket and later the Steiff teddy bear. And it's a beautiful, beautiful story. I loved it. It was gorgeous. There are some illustrations throughout the book, not heaps, because it is definitely a middle fiction title, but my gosh, it was stunning. And I love this. One of my favorite reads of the week. So my first reread was one of the picture books that I read during the week, but my current reread that is still ongoing is Magic Bites by Ilona Andrews. 10 points for those of you who guessed that it was an Ilona Andrews title. Did I contemplate going back to Clean Sweep? Yes, I did, but I'm going to save that for Love in the Night. I had 2 project books I read for luck's sake by Cozy Dubois for the Buzzword reading vlog, and I have also read Southern Skies, which is an anthology, so I'm finally getting a start on my anthology project for the year, and this will have an anthology diary video where I sort of wrap up each individual story within this. That should hopefully be coming out this week if I get around to editing it. Then on to books that are new to me, books and adult titles that I can review. So the first one that I was reading over the weekend as an audiobook was Broken Harbour by Katherine Cowles, which is book 3 in the Sparrow Falls series. So I'm just slowly making my way through the audio of these. I've just got them all on hold on Libby. This is the story of a single mum who has escaped a really toxic relationship with her ex-husband, who was a professional football player who ended up injured and then addicted to pain medication, and then was quite controlling, and also ended up in trouble with mob or the mafia or something like that, where he ended up owing money, and he got his now ex-wife Sutton beaten up as a result. And she fled with her son. They've ended up in Sparrow Falls, and there she's started to carve out this new life with a bakery, but she's kind of living paycheck to paycheck, and her landlord is a dick. Enter Cope, who is one of the siblings that is the connection between all of these books. He is a professional hockey player. He has been, can't remember if he's injured or if he's suspended. Anyway, he's having some issues with one of the other players on his team. He's back home. He ends up meeting Sutton and her son, and they hit it off, and he sees that she needs help and ends up helping her. And all of the Katherine Cowles stories, I will say, they do feature very alpha MMCs. It's just the way that it's written. They're romantic suspense. There is somebody out there trying to tar Cope's name, and then there is also Sutton's ex-husband who is trying to get money out of Sutton. So this one does have content warnings for substance abuse, physical violence towards a partner not between the main love interests, discussions of death of a parent. There is a death of a friend that occurs not quite on page, but happens during the course of the book, and that is due to a car accident. Actually, both the deaths involve car accidents, which is a trigger for Cope. I'm enjoying this series. It's a very easy read, especially listening to it as an audiobook. In fact, I have the next book that I'll talk about in a moment. I also read Through Gates of Garnet and Gold by Seanan McGuire, which is book 11 in the Wayward Children series, which is a series that I just can't seem to quit. Even though I'm not loving the series, this book though is probably the best book that I've read in the series in the last couple of years. I started reading these books when they first came out. I loved book 1. Book 2 is my absolute favourite book in the series, and probably the reason that I enjoyed this book is that a particular character from book 2 features in this book, as well as the return of the protagonist from the first book. So this is about Nancy, who we met in book 1. She ended up returning to her world, which is a world of living statues. And she's been there now for a long time. While she is standing as a statue, one day the ghosts come through the halls of the dead, and they end up killing a number of her fellow statues, her friends, and she is told to flee back to her world for safety and to see if she can find help. And that's what she does. She recruits her friends from Earth to come with her back to her world to try and figure out what's going on. And that's when I figure out the connection between who the villain is of this piece. And I really, really enjoyed this because it's mostly because it's a return of some of my favourite characters. Not my favourite character of the series, but some of my favourite characters from the series and their stories. This one got a tick of approval. The last few have kind of been But I think switching to the audiobooks for these has made it easier for me to continue the series as opposed to reading them with my eyes. Then I read First to Finish by Rebecca J. Caffrey. This is the second book in her Pole Position series, and it is a queer F1 story. So it is the relationship between Johan, who is an F1 driver, and Caleb, who is his race engineer. And Johan at the start of the book is having a bit of a slump in the middle of the season, which is not ideal. And part of that is due to the fact that his secret boyfriend, who is about to become the owner of another racing team, has just broken up with him, despite the fact they've been together for 3 years. But Johan is realizing that the relationship has been really one-sided and that his ex-boyfriend has really been treating him badly, and he has just been waiting and waiting for any scrap of attention from his ex. And to top it all off, his ex breaks up with him at the wedding of Johan's best friends, which is just awful. So Johan is the best friend of one of the main characters from the first book. So we have seen him previously. Caleb is his new race engineer. He's only been with him since I think the start of the season, so he's still getting a feel for how they work together. But he recognizes that Johan is struggling and starts to get to know him a little bit better and does nice things like buys him a coffee before the race, etc. And there is a mutual attraction there, but neither of them are willing to do anything about it initially. And then as Johan's performance starts improving, their relationship gets better because Johan is less in a bad mood and is more able to actively communicate with people. So it's very much a forbidden kind of workplace romance. It's not really forbidden, but it's kind of that people can't know about this yet because everyone's got an opinion and they really don't need that in their life. So they're kind of stealing these secret moments on the road, but it's an open secret. There are people who do know and who are supportive of them. And it was fun. It was nice to come back to this world. I still don't know anything about F1 racing and I don't feel the need to learn anything more than kind of what I get from the books that I'm reading about it. And I think this one did have some good conversations around open communication in a relationship as well, which I think was very important, including Johan actually eventually getting to the point where he can talk to his ex-boyfriend and explain exactly what the relationship felt like to him, which one is great personal character growth, but also really important to see people being able to say, actually, I did love you, but this is how you made me feel, and this is the reason why there is no chance that we're getting back together again. So I appreciated that. And then the last book that I have to talk about is Beautiful Exile by Katherine Cowles, which is the fourth book in the Sparrow Falls series. The audiobook came in for it this week, so I did finish it. This one is the story of Link and Arden. Arden is Cope's sister. She was fostered and adopted by his mother. And Link is the owner of the hockey team that Cope plays for, which is how they met. So we find out that Arden ended up in witness protection as a child because her parents were murdered. And her father was a judge and he took some bribes and people came to collect, essentially. So years later, she is an artist. She is no longer in the witness protection program, but she doesn't like sharing her history around. She has no interest in being publicly known. She doesn't want her photo being published. She doesn't want to do interviews or anything like that for her art, even though she's quite famous through selling her work. And Link has decided that he wants to build a house in Sparrow Falls, and while Cope is away, Cope has offered up his house for Link, but Arden also shares a house on the property. So they're in fairly close proximity to one another, and she doesn't like anyone in her space, so this is initially frustrating for her. In the background, we have Link's dad. So Link is a billionaire. Be mindful of that. I had to check some thoughts at the door before reading the book. His father, also a billionaire, is someone that he's estranged from, and his father is just trying to make his life miserable in business. He is just a narcissistic prick. And so Link is kind of battling that in the background, along with the fact that his sister, who he loves dearly, is getting married to someone who lives in that world, and he just doesn't want that for her. And he's concerned that she's not happy with that decision and that she's only doing it to keep her father happy. And so his sister pops up in the book because she's obviously going to be an love interest for another one of Arden and Cope's siblings later in the series. Arden is also starting to get messages that someone knows who she is, which is starting to freak her out. And so it's the two of them trying to figure out what's going on, trying to keep Arden's identity safe, especially as she's about to launch a new initiative with the art collective that she works with to provide a safe place for kids to come and do art. Yeah, it was romantic suspense. I've said this before, Katherine Cowles has a formula, she sticks to it, it works, and it makes for good audiobook listening. So is it something to write home about? Not necessarily. Did I enjoy it? Yes, because it was entertaining. But it does play with a lot of typical romance tropes of alpha male heroes. You have a strong female protagonist, but she ends up in trouble a lot. Not necessarily through stupid acts, which is good, but she ends up being saved a bit, which that can probably be something Katherine Cowles can improve, because all of her female characters are actually very strong, independent women who could probably save themselves. And that would be kind of fun to see her play around with that. I think that's all I have to talk about. The only thing that I will mention is in the upcoming week, I'm hoping to read Swordheart by T.Kingfisher because it's something that a friend of mine and I have said we're going to read and have a chat about. Click by Sarah Bailey is also coming out next week, I believe, so I want to try and make sure that I read through that because I have an arc from NetGalley. I do have another contemporary fiction or lit fic, I'm not quite sure what it is, from Allen and Unwin that I know will be out in a couple of weeks' time. It's probably going to be a holiday read for me. I don't think it's going to be a after school read, at least not in the next 2 weeks. So that one was unsolicited. I didn't request it, so I might save that for when I'm on holiday so I can read it and it will probably sit better with me. And I guess that's it for this week's wrap up. A little bit longer than the last one. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of these books? Or are you planning on picking any of them up? Or feel free to share something that you have been reading over the last 7 days. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave, well, let's go with the bear emoji for Pocket Bear. Feel free to leave a bear emoji to let me know that you're here. I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.